The galaxy was wide and cold, full of strange lights and shadows. Across empty space, an old human cryo chamber drifted without sound. It had no flag, no signal, no crew, only one sleeping figure locked inside. Most ships that passed by ignored it, thinking it was just debris from a forgotten war. But one alien scavenger ship stopped. Its crew laughed when they saw the strange design. "This is human trash," one of them said, tapping the chamber with a claw. "Humans vanished long ago. Nothing strong was ever left behind," another replied. The chamber shook slightly, as if answering their mockery. A faint light blinked on its panel, a system that should have died thousands of years ago. The aliens did not notice at first. They dragged the chamber aboard, eager to sell it as scrap. Their captain thought it might make a good trophy. "Imagine the council's face when I show them I caught a frozen human," he said with pride. The others cheered, for they thought it was only a relic. They had no idea what they carried inside. The chamber rested in the center of their ship. Frozen mist swirled around the glass, hiding the human face within. The alien crew gathered, curious to see what ancient humans looked like. One soldier pressed a scanner against the glass and laughed. "Look, it still has flesh, not even bones yet." Another sneered. "Humans were weak, they always needed machines to fight for them." Their voices filled the room with mockery. Yet, behind the glass, a faint breath stirred. Inside the chamber, the human's mind was heavy. Dreams of battlefields and burning skies echoed in his sleep. He did not know where he was, but something inside him pushed to wake. The cryo system had preserved him for longer than any alien expected. It had done more than just keep him alive. It had changed him, strengthened him in ways the galaxy could not understand. The aliens kept Joe's. "King." One of them lifted a weapon and aimed it at the chamber. "Should I test if it still bleeds?" He laughed. The captain stopped him. "No, we'll open it soon, but not here. Not yet." His eyes glittered with greed. He wanted to present the sleeping human to the alien council as a prize. He thought it would prove the Empire's power. Instead, it would start the Empire's nightmare. As the ship drifted through space, alarms began to sound. The cryo chamber's ancient systems had awakened. The temperature inside started to rise. Mist hissed as ice cracked and melted away. The human's heartbeat grew stronger, echoing faintly through the chamber walls. The aliens leaned closer, their laughter turning uneasy. "Wait. Did it just move?" one whispered. Another shook his head. "Impossible. Humans cannot survive this long." But the chamber answered with a sharp pulse of light. The glass fog cleared and the face of the human appeared for the first time. It was calm, pale, and yet strangely powerful. The aliens stepped back, their claws twitching in sudden fear. For reasons they could not explain, the sight of the human filled them with dread. Something deep in their memory whispered that humans were never ordinary. The captain forced a grin. "Do not be afraid. This is only a frozen relic," he told his crew. But even he felt a tremor in his voice. The human's eyes moved beneath closed lids. A shiver passed through the room. The silence grew heavy, broken only by the slow cracking of ice. In that moment, the galaxy itself seemed to hold its breath. The alien crew, once so loud with mockery, now stood in silence. The human inside stirred once more, his chest rising with steady breath. One soldier whispered, "If it wakes, what then?" The captain snapped back. "Then we chain it, then we show it off to the council." But his words carried no strength, because even he could see the Trarsan. This was not a normal human, this was something more. The chamber lights glowed brighter, ancient systems hummed with power. Symbols scrolled across the panel in a human language long forgotten. The alien scanners beeped wildly, unable to understand the readings. Numbers spiked, signals roared. The machine declared one fact. The human was alive and his strength was rising. The aliens did not laugh anymore. They backed away, weapons trembling in their claws. The captain shouted, "Hold position, it is only a body." But his own eyes betrayed fear, for deep inside he realized the terrible truth. When this chamber opened, no weapon in their hands would be enough. The glass began to crack, the mist cleared fully, and the human's eyes opened, bright, steady, unshaken. The first breath he took echoed like thunder through the silent ship. The aliens froze, their hearts racing with fear, for the cryo sleeper had awakened, and the galaxy's old nightmare was walking again. The cryo chamber hissed open with a sound like breaking thunder. Cold mist rolled across the floor, covering the alien soldier's feet. Their weapons shook in their claws, aimed at the figure that slowly stepped out. It was a human, tall, scarred, yet strangely calm. The human's eyes scanned the room. He did not speak. His breath was steady, his gaze sharp. The aliens expected him to collapse, to fall weak after so many centuries, but instead he stood firm, as if the weight of years meant nothing to him. The captain barked an order. Chain him, bind his hands, do not let him move. Soldiers rushed forward with steel cuffs glowing with energy locks. The human did not resist. He raised his hands slowly, watching them with quiet eyes. The crew laughed nervously, thinking he was already defeated. But deep inside, unease grew. Every movement of the human felt too controlled, too precise. Even in chains, he looked like a predator waiting for the right moment. The captain forced himself to sneer. "Look at this relic. It is nothing but a prisoner now," he said. But the words sounded hollow in the heavy silence. The human closed his eyes. Strange flashes filled his mind. Shattered battlefields, fleets burning, cities falling. He remembered fragments of a war long past. He remembered humanity's final stand. He did not know why he was still alive. But one thing was clear. He was not the same as before. His blood felt different, stronger. His bones felt harder. Even the air around him seemed to bend to his presence. The aliens pushed him forward into the holding cells. Metal doors locked behind him. Scanners swept over his body, reading impossible results. His strength levels broke every alien measure. His heart rate was steady like a machine. The scientists who studied him whispered in panic. "This should not exist," one muttered. Another whispered, "No creature survives this long in cryo. No creature grows stronger." The captain ordered silence. He wanted to present the human to the Empire's High Council. He dreamed of rewards, of power, of glory. But the crew only felt dread. Their instincts told them this was not a prize. This was a storm waiting to break. The human sat quietly in the dark cell, his hands chained, his feet locked. Yet he was listening, feeling, watching. Every hum of the ship's engine, every step outside the door, he mapped it all in his mind without effort. The cryo sleep had sharpened his senses beyond natural limits. One guard dared to mock him. He banged on the bars and spat. "You are nothing, relic. You will be cut open and studied like an insect." The human opened his eyes. For the first time he spoke, his voice calm but heavy. "You think chains will hold me?" The guard froze, fear running down his spine. There was no anger in the human's voice, only certainty, like the words of someone who already knew the future. Outside, the scientists argued, "We cannot keep him on this sotis." "Hip, his readings are climbing," another shouted. "He will break free, I can feel it." The captain silenced them. "You fear a human? They are gone, extinct, finished," he roared. But even as he spoke, the walls trembled with a strange energy. The human's pulse was syncing with the ship itself. Lights flickered, engines stuttered, as if obeying his hidden will. Then it happened. The chains around his wrists glowed bright, then cracked like brittle glass. Alarms screamed across the ship. Guards rushed in, weapons ready, their eyes wide with terror. The human rose to his feet, chains falling uselessly to the ground. He looked at the soldiers, and for the first time he smiled. A slow, quiet smile that made their hearts freeze. One soldier fired, a beam of energy that could cut stone in half. The blast struck the human's chest, but instead of falling, he took one step forward, unharmed. The energy rippled across his skin and vanished like smoke. The aliens gasped in horror, their strongest weapons useless. The human's voice echoed through the chamber, calm and steady. "You have no idea what I am now." Panic spread through the crew. They fired again and again, but each shot failed. Their weapons shook, their hands trembled. The human moved with speed they could not match. In a blink, he stood among them. One guard tried to run, but the human's hand caught his weapon and crushed it with ease. Another fell back, screaming, "He is not human, he is something more." The captain forced himself to stand tall. "You will obey the Empire," he shouted, though his voice shook. The human turned toward him, his eyes glowing faintly with strange light. "No," he said simply. And the word carried more weight than any weapon. In that instant, the crew understood the truth. The cryo sleep had not just preserved him, it had transformed him. He was no longer only a man, he was a weapon the galaxy had never seen before. The ship drifted in silence, the crew trembling, the seats, apt and pale with fear, and the human stood free, his chains broken. The storm had only begun. The alien ship shook under the weight of silence. The human stood in the center of the chamber, broken chains at his feet. Around him, soldiers trembled, weapons raised but hearts already defeated. For the first time, they realized their weapons were not the strongest thing in this room. The captain forced his voice to rise. "Fire together. Bring him down now." Dozens of blasts lit up the chamber, bolts of energy that could tear holes through steel walls. The air roared with power. The ground shook. But when the light cleared, the human was still standing. Not even a scratch marked his skin. He took one slow step forward. The sound of his foot echoed like a hammer on iron. Another step, and the floor cracked under his weight. The aliens froze, their weapons suddenly heavy, their courage gone. The human raised his hand and closed it into a fist. Every light in the room flickered out at once. The ship itself seemed to obey him. The crew screamed, darkness swallowing their sight. The emergency lights blinked on, red and weak. In that crimson glow, the human's figure loomed larger than life. His eyes reflected the light like fire. One soldier panicked and charged, blade raised. The human moved faster than their eyes could follow. He caught the blade with his bare hand, and the weapon shattered like glass. The soldier fell back, trembling. The others dared not move. The human's voice came low and steady. "You chained me. You mocked me. Now you will learn why you feared us." The crew shivered, for the words were not spoken in anger. They were spoken like truth, like prophecy. With a sudden motion, he struck the ground. The impact shook the entire deck. Metal split, walls cracked, alarms wailed. Half the crew stumbled, thrown to the floor by the shockwave. The human had not attacked them directly. He had only shown what one strike could do, and that was enough to break their courage. The captain staggered to his feet, his pride broken. "What are you?" he whispered. The human turned his eyes on him. "I am human," he answered simply. But in that word there was power. Power older than the empire itself. The crew knew then that this was not just a survivor. This was a reminder of why humanity had once been feared. The soldiers tried to retreat. They backed toward the doors, desperate to escape. But the human raised his hand again. The doors slammed shut with a sound like thunder. No one had touched the controls, yet the ship obeyed him. The aliens gasped, whispering in terror. "He commands the ship," one said. "He bends machines to his will," another muttered. They were right. The cryo sleep had not only strengthened his body, it had bound him with power the galaxy did not understand. The human turned toward the window. Beyond the glass, stars stretched across the void. He stared at them with longing. His lips moved, and a single word escaped. "Home," he whispered. The sound carried through the silent chamber. The crew felt chills run through their bones, for in that whisper was a promise. If there was one human alive, there could be more, and if more returned, the galaxy would tremble. The captain stumbled back. "This is impossible. You should not exist," he said. But the human looked at him calmly. "Your empire forgot us. You believed we were gone. But we were never gone. We were waiting." The words cut deeper than any weapon. The crew looked at each other. For the first time, fear of extinction filled their alien hearts. Suddenly, alarms blared across the entire ship. Enemy signals detected, hostile fleets approaching. The crew rushed to the panels, shouting in panic. "They are here! The council has sent hunters!" The captain turned pale. If the council's hunters saw this human alive, the empire would burn. They would not allow such a being to exist. The hunters would kill them all to erase the proof. The human listened to their panic. He understood enough. The empire feared him. The council feared him. And soon the galaxy itself would know his name. He clenched his fists and breathed deep. For the first time, he felt not just strength, but purpose. The soldiers raised their weapons once more, but this time the human did not wait. He moved like a storm, striking with speed beyond sight. One soldier fell, another weapon crumpled. He did not kill them, he only shattered their confidence. The message was clear. He could destroy them if he wished, but he chose not to. The captain fell to his knees, sweat dripping down his brow. "You will bring the end of us," he whispered. The human turned, his shadow stretching across the broken floor. "No," he said, his voice calm but powerful. "I will bring the beginning." The ship groaned, engines faltering under strange waves of energy. And in that moment, everyone on board knew the first strike had been made, not against their bodies, but against their empire. And soon, the galaxy would feel the echo. Word of the Cryo Sleeper spread faster than any fleet. What began as whispers on one scavenger ship soon reached the ears of traders, smugglers, and spies. Within days, every corner of the empire was murmuring the same fear. A human has awakened, they said, a relic of the past, stronger than weapons, stronger than armies. In the high halls of the alien council, leaders argued in panic. This cannot be true, humans are extinct, one shouted. Another slammed the table. Then explain the signals, explain the shattered chains, explain the readings. The chamber fell into silence. Every council member knew the old stories, stories they had buried, stories of human wars that once gone. Read the stars. The empire had mocked humanity as weak, but in secret records, even their ancestors had trembled. The council ordered the immediate capture of the Cryo Sleeper. Dozens of hunter fleets were dispatched, yet fear still lingered. If one human could survive cryo sleep and rise stronger, could more be hidden? Could humanity return? Meanwhile, aboard the scavenger ship, the human sat in the command chamber. The captain was no longer a master, but a prisoner of his own vessel. His crew obeyed the human's silent presence. None dared raise a weapon again. The human had not killed them. Yet that mercy only deepened their terror. For mercy meant control. It meant he was choosing when they lived and when they died. The ship drifted through cold space. The human stood before the great window, staring at the stars. His eyes reflected strange light, as if each star answered his gaze. He did not speak often, but when he did, the crew listened in silence. "We were never gone," he said quietly one night. "We only waited, and now the waiting is over." The words sent shivers through the aliens. They felt as if he was not only speaking to them, but to the galaxy itself. In secret corners of the empire, old veterans trembled. They remembered the last war against humans, how fleets vanished, how worlds burned, how no weapon could break human will. They had told their children humanity was gone. Now those children heard the rumor of an awakened human and felt fear they had never known. The empire tried to silence the truth. Ships were destroyed, witnesses erased, but still the whispers spread. In the shadows of marketplaces, in the darkness of prison cells, in the barracks of soldiers, one name grew heavy. Human. It was no longer spoken with laughter, but with dread. The scavenger captain sat broken in his quarters. He watched as the human walked through his ship like a ghost. Every machine seemed to bend toward him. Doors opened without command. Lights flickered when he passed. Engines hummed differently under his presence. The captain muttered to himself, "He is not man, he is storm." But even as he whispered, he knew the truth. This was humanity's nature, hidden, waiting, now rising. The hunters finally arrived. Dozens of warships surrounded the scavenger vessel, weapons armed. A voice boomed through the comms. "Release the human, surrender him to the council." The crew turned pale. They knew if they handed him over, they might live. But they also knew the council would tear the human apart. Yet before they could decide, the human himself stepped forward. He stood tall in the center of the bridge, eyes calm, chains long forgotten. He spoke in a voice that shook even the strongest soldier. "I do not belong to your council. I do not belong to your empire." He raised his hand toward the glass. The hunter ships outside trembled as if caught by unseen force. Engines screamed, weapons shut down, alarms wailed across their decks. One by one, mighty warships bent under his unseen power. The scavenger crew watched in horror and awe. The human did not move, he only willed it, and ships obeyed him. Metal groaned, lights flickered, and one hunter ship cracked apart, splitting into fire and silence. The others fled, their captains shouting in terror. "This is not possible. No one controls fleets like this." But they had seen it. One human, without touching a console, had broken their power. The council received the report with pale faces. "This cannot continue," one whispered. "If he is not stopped, if more like him awaken, the empire itself will fall." But none of them admitted the darkest truth. Deep inside, they all knew it was already too late. For fear had spread faster than any order, and empires do not survive fear of ghosts. especially when the ghost walks again in flesh. The human returned to silence. He sat in the command chair, his gaze lost among the stars. The scavenger crew no longer dared to speak to him, but in their hearts they carried a truth they could not escape. The Empire trembled, the galaxy whispered. And one man had done it without raising a blade. The Council had failed with fleets. They had failed with hunters. Now they whispered of their last option. Send the will breakers, the Empire's secret weapons. These were not machines or soldiers. They were minds sharpened into blades, trained to crush spirit and soul. If the human's body could not be broken, perhaps his will could be. Across the stars, the order was given. 5 great dreadnoughts moved together, black shapes against starlight. On board were the strongest warlords, each one a master of fear. They had broken rebels, kings, and entire civilizations without firing a shot. When they spoke, armies bent. When they stared, leaders wept. The Empire believed no one could stand against them. On the scavenger ship, the crew trembled. They felt the weight of the approaching dreadnoughts before they even arrived. The air grew heavy, the lights dimmed, as if reality itself feared what was coming. The captain whispered, "The will breakers are here." Even his voice shook. No one dared look at the human. They feared what would happen when unstoppable force met unbreakable will. The ships appeared outside, massive and silent. Their voices entered the mind of every creature aboard the scavenger vessel. "You are alone," they whispered. "You are nothing," they pressed. Their words were not sound but pressure. They twisted thought, bent courage, drained hope. The crew fell to their knees, claws clutching their heads. Some screamed, some wept, some begged. Even the captain collapsed, unable to breathe under the weight. But in the center of the storm sat the human, his back straight, his eyes closed. The pressure pressed on him like mountains. It tried to crush his memories, his strength, his very soul. Visions filled his mind, cities burning, allies falling, the sound of humanity's last cries. The voices sneered. "You failed. Before you will fail again. You are dust. You are relic." The human's chest rose slowly. He opened his eyes, and his gaze cut through the shadows. "No," he said quietly. His voice was soft, yet it broke through the storm like a blade. The will breakers recoiled. Never before had anyone spoken back under their power. The human rose to his feet, chains long gone, shadow long stretched. "You cannot break what is already forged in fire," he said. Every word was steady, carved from iron. The pressure deepened. The dreadnoughts poured all their will into him. Visions grew stronger, louder, crueler. They showed him worlds he could not save, friends who betrayed him, victories turned to ashes. They tried to drown him in despair, but the human did not falter. Instead, he stood taller. The images twisted and cracked, for his memories were not chains, they were fuel. The pain of the past became his strength. The loss of his people became his fire. He raised his hand. The walls of the scavenger ship shook. The crew gasped as light poured from his skin like living flame. The will breakers faltered, their voices trembled. This was not possible. No one had ever turned their pressure back against them, but the human was doing it. Every whisper of fear they sent into him, he returned as strength. Every shadow they tried to cast, he burned away with light. The dreadnoughts trembled in the void. One cracked, its metal skin splitting as if torn by invisible hands. Another spun out of formation, engines screaming. The will breakers inside screamed, clutching their own heads, for the human had turned their weapons against them. He was breaking their wills. The crew of the scavenger ship watched in awe and terror. They whispered among themselves, "This is not war, this is judgment." The captain, pale and shaking, whispered aloud, "He is not fighting with fists, he is fighting with spirit." And it was true. This was not a battle of weapons. It was a battle of will, and the human's will burned brighter than any star. The last dreadnought tried to flee. Its engines roared, fire spilled into the void, but the human's voice followed. "You wanted to see if I could break." He raised his hand. "You have your answer." The dreadnought's hull cracked, metal folding like paper. The will breakers screamed as their voices shattered into silence. The ship tore apart, scattering across the void. Silence returned, heavy and endless. The scavenger crew crawled to their feet, their eyes wide with awe. They had seen fleets destroyed, armies crushed, worlds burned, but never had they seen one man break the strongest weapons of the Empire with nothing but will. The human turned back to the window, his gaze steady, his face calm. He whispered one word that only the stars seemed to hear. home. And across the empire, fear grew deeper. The fleets had failed, the hunters had failed, even the willbreakers had failed. The galaxy now understood this human could not be broken, and if he could not be broken, he could not be stopped. The galaxy had heard whispers before of humanity's lost fleets hidden beyond the known borders. Legends spoke of cities buried in shadow, of warriors sleeping for centuries, but no one believed they were real. Until now, the human stood on the bridge of the scavenger ship. The void stretched before him, silent yet heavy. His eyes scanned the stars, each one a pinprick of darkness, hiding secrets. And then, faint at first, a flicker of light appeared. 1, 2, 10, 100 points of white. They moved in formation, silent as ghosts, and slowly, the outline of ships became clear, long dormant, forgotten, yet alive. The Terran fleet was returning. The crew of the scavenger ship fell to their knees. They had never seen such ships. Smooth black hulls glinting with strange energy, each one bristling with weaponry beyond imagination. But more than that, they carried presence. The kind of presence that made stars themselves seem smaller. The human's lips curved into a calm smile. "They have heard," he whispered. "They are coming." Across the empire, dread spread like wildfire. Intelligence stations picked up signals they could not decode. Fleets vanished from star systems without a trace. Allies of the empire whispered of shadows in space, and for the first time, fear touched the council's heart. The human was no longer alone. He had called something they could not fight, something they had forgotten, something unstoppable. The first fleet emerged from the dark void, 1,000 ships at once, engines glowing, lights reflecting like fire across the black. The Empire scrambled, weapons readied, signals jammed, but every attempt to intercept failed. The Terran ships moved as one, precise, unstoppable, and at their center the human scavenger ship, glowing with energy like a beacon. He raised his hand and the fleets responded, maneuvering, forming ranks, waiting for his command. The Empire sent envoys first, thinking negotiation could save them, but their words died in the void. The human did not speak to them. He let the fleet's arrival speak, and the envoys fled in terror, warning their lords. Fear gripped the council's heart, for even their strongest commanders admitted the truth. These were not human ships as they had known them. These were weapons of legend, alive with purpose, and at their center stood the one they could never break. The human's voice echoed through the communication channels, not loud, not angry, but clear and unshakable. Your empire has ruled by fear, by death, by lies. Your fleets have burned worlds, enslaved stars. It ends now. In the dark reaches of space, lights began to flicker. Ships that had been dormant for centuries stirred. Long-abandoned colonies sent signals, responding to a call they had not heard in generations, the human's awakening. G resonated like a pulse, a heartbeat across the galaxy, and wherever it touched, hope returned and fear deepened in the Empire. The Council summoned their champions, the galaxy's strongest. They thought numbers and might would crush the human and his fleet, but the human was not waiting for attack. He was building a wall, not of metal, but of presence. Every Terran ship answered his call, every weapon loaded with his command, every pilot ready to die or live by his will alone. The first battle would come, the first stars would burn, but humanity was no longer weak, no longer hidden, and the Empire would soon learn the human they tried to break was now the force that would break them. The void trembled as ships aligned, energy crackled like lightning. And in that silence the galaxy waited, for the storm of humanity had returned, stronger, smarter, unstoppable, and the human at its center stood calm, eyes glowing, heart steady, mind sharper than any weapon. He whispered, "Show them who we are." The Empire's fleets gathered, a wall of steel and fire stretching across the void. They had the numbers, the experience, the confidence of centuries, but they had forgotten one thing. They had forgotten humanity. The human stood on the bridge of his flagship. The Terran fleet stretched behind him, a river of black and silver, every ship alive with energy, every weapon humming with precision. He did not panic, he did not shout, he simply looked at the enemy and waited. The first wave of Imperial ships charged, engines blazing, weapons firing, lasers cut through the void, missiles streaked like falling stars. But every strike that aimed for the human fleet met resistance. The Terran shields absorbed, deflected, redirected, and from the heart of the fleet the human gave his command, a single gesture, and the Terran ships moved as one, a wall of unstoppable force closing on the Empire like a living shadow. The Empire's admirals screamed orders, but their fleets faltered, their weapons jammed, missiles crashed. It was not luck, it was not chance, it was the human's will. He had learned, adapted, outsmarted them. Every move anticipated, every weakness exploited. The first flagship fell, torn apart by weapons the human had created centuries before. Then the second, then the third. Their numbers meant nothing. Their pride shattered against Terran precision, and the Empire watched in horror. The human, once a lone figure stepping from cryo sleep, now the master of the galaxy's greatest weapon, and the one who could not be broken. The battle raged across star systems. Planets trembled as fleets collided. Asteroids shattered under the weight of combat. And yet, humanity did not kill blindly. Every strike was measured, every decision sharp. The human did not seek destruction. He sought justice. The Empire's tyranny had ended, and every world enslaved now tasted hope. The final ship of the Empire, the Council's flagship, hovered above a burning planet, its weapons aimed at rebellion, at hope, at life. But the human was ready. He stepped forward and his voice echoed across every communication channel. Your empire ends now. No fear, no hesitation, only truth. The flagship fired, energy crackling like a storm, but the human's fleet moved faster, engines screaming, weapons aligned, and then the final strike came. A wave of energy, unstoppable, consuming, brilliant. The flagship exploded in a silent fire, and the Empire's heart was broken. Across the galaxy, silence fell. Ships stopped, weapons powered down. For the first time in centuries, fear belonged to no one. The human looked at the stars, at worlds freed from tyranny, at civilizations rising, and for the first time, he smiled. Not for power, not for victory, but for humanity. The galaxy had tried to crush them, to erase them, to forget them, but humanity had returned stronger than weapons, smarter than fleets. And no one would ever forget again, for the human who had walked from cryo sleep was no longer alone. He was the heart of humanity, and humanity unstoppable had finally come home. The stars themselves seemed to shine brighter that night, as fleets of Terran ships celebrated, planets cheered in silence, and the human whispered, "We are not just survivors, we are the beginning of everything." The galaxy would remember, and for the first time it would fear humanity not as conquerors, but as protectors, as the race that could rise from the ashes, stronger, wiser, unbroken, and no weapon, no empire, no darkness could ever challenge them again.